I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. A new poll shows the number of pro-choice Americans hits a record low. We'll get some insight as to why that's the case and how it may play out in this year's election. Plus, it's a sexual education talk that parents need to hear.
Planned Parenthood and SECUS, what they want is for students to be open to just about any type of sexual activity.
And it may not be American Idol, but some young people from the Diocese audition for a unique opportunity.
We are going to be willing to help them in any way that we can possibly help them to succeed.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. In 1995, the Gallup poll began asking Americans to define themselves as pro-choice or pro-life on abortion. 17 years later, we are seeing notable shifts on the issue. In the mid-90s, the pro-choice side had wide leads. That narrowed between 1998 through 2008 to what Gallup refers to as a close division between the two positions. Then in 2009, for the first time, a slim majority of Americans, 51%, identified as pro-life. Fast forward to today, Gallup has found that pro-lifers are in the lead by a 9-point margin of 50% to 41%. Now, Gallup's Values and Beliefs Survey digs even deeper, taking the pulse of the political composition on this hot-button issue. Now, about 60% of Democrats are pro-choice versus 34% who are pro-life, and about 72% of Republicans are pro-life compared to 22% that take a pro-choice stance. Now, how long the drop in the number of U.S. adults identifying as pro-choice lasts remains to be seen. However, it does merit exploring what's behind the trend. Joining me for the story behind the numbers is Marjorie Dannenfelser. She's president of the Susan B. Anthony List, an organization that seeks to advance pro-life objectives, including electing pro-life men and women to Congress. Marjorie, thank you so much for joining us today.
I love being with you, and that was a beautiful and perfect analysis of the facts on the ground.
Thank you very much. A lot of it we got from your website, and we're talking about a notable shift in favor of the pro-life platform. Are you surprised?
Well, it is a trend that is very definite and clear and constant over the last decade, and so I am not, while I am very happy, I'm not surprised. There are definite components to this, and they are real. They are very human, and some of the indicators of the shift are the conversations that pro-choice leaders have among themselves about the concerns they have about the bottom falling out of their movement, though those are not the terms they use. Mm-hmm. They discuss very publicly and openly about how they're losing the confidence and intensity of young people, those that are under 30. And they talk about how their chief concern is that they've lost the moral high ground, and really wring their hands about how they're going to regain it, which is we believe is a non-starter of an argument because it isn't, of course, rooted in truth. Mm-hmm. But they see it, they feel it. The electoral consequences of that are that we have more pro-life members of Congress mm-hmm. and in the Senate, and especially on the state level, than we have in, I wouldn't say the numbers, I would say the intensity is mm-hmm. strong.
And Marjorie, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said that those in favor of efforts to promote that continued funding of abortion with our tax dollars are arguing in direct opposition to public opinion. Now, this is just one poll, but do you think this is the first in what may be more evidence of your assertions?
Oh, well, there's no question. Even Gallup shows that this is not just one poll, that it is one piece of evidence of a long trend, and they call pro-life the new normal. Gallup uses those words. Mm-hmm. The pro-life position is the new normal. No one would have said that 20 years ago. I think most people thought that label, which was marketed and tested and all that, the pro-choice label, was very good, and in the majority. Without question, they believe it is true. Every once in a while there's an outlier poll, but this is the strong trend that most people acknowledge, including the pro-choice side.
And we've also learned that state lawmakers around the country have proposed well over 400 pro-life laws in the first quarter of 2012 alone. Hundreds more provisions were introduced, and that's according to a recent study on abortion-related legislation by the Guttmacher Institute. What do you say to that?
Well, it's an organic movement. It is coming from the people. A lot of times movements say that, and it's not really true. It is true. In fact, sometimes the legislators have a hard time keeping up with what the grassroots desire is. That's why the legislation that is passing is closest to the will of the people on the state level. The one power that the administration has, this president, well, they have two, actually. They have two muscles. One is the executive power of the president, and another is in the courts. But they do not have that power on the grassroots, and that's why this legislation is moving so quickly.
And now back in April, presumptive Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney won the endorsement and some substantial financial backing of SBA. First, explain what that entails.
Our endorsement is hard-won, which is a good thing. You have to be a proven pro-life candidate, and you have to make very solid commitments. And that is what we have seen for candidate Governor Romney. He is committed to very concrete policy objectives that we will remind over and over and over again. They are the appointment of pro-life or constitutionalist judges to the Supreme Court. He has said that he will appoint a pro-life vice president, that he will defund the abortion industry and defund abortion in the federal government, and he will advance a fetal pain law that would end abortion after the point that the unborn child feels pain. These are very concrete, and it made it easy. The money involved is the money that it takes to communicate with the grassroots in battleground states all over the country, and that's about a $10 million investment. So this is not chump change, and it's also not easy. So it is very real, and it makes a difference, and the pro-life movement has earned this place of power that started with that sentiment on the ground that you expressed in the poll.
And Marjorie, really quickly, how does this week's Gallup poll and the increase in pro-life legislation set the stage for the November elections, in your opinion?
It really is a pivotal moment, and I bet you have covered every election in the last decade. I would bet that you have heard many times people say that this is a pivotal moment, this is a pivotal moment. Well, this really is it. We have the most pro-abortion president in the country, inciting a wave of pro-choice policies in the federal government, pressing abortion at every turn. And then we have a wave on the ground, a grassroots backlash to that overreach on his part. And who wins will decide the direction of the nation on life, and it will be expressed in the presidency and in the Supreme Court, which will either affirm or reject pro-life protections for unborn children.
Absolutely. And Marjorie, as you've mentioned, we have covered it, I have covered it, and I'm pretty sure we're going to continue covering it. And I hope you join us again for more detailed analysis in the future. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I always enjoy it. You're good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And I should mention that while Americans identify as pro-choice has waned over the past year, their fundamental views about the morality and legality of abortion have held steady. Gallup found that 51% of Americans consider abortion morally wrong, and 38% say it is morally acceptable, nearly identical to the results in May 2011. Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. A chance to read what's one of the country's founding fathers wrote on religious liberty. That story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. One of the country's most prominent Catholic voices says all Americans should cherish freedom of conscience. In an opinion piece for the Washington Post, Cardinal Donald Wuerl says people do not have to agree with Catholic teaching in order to agree that the government should not force the church to violate its beliefs. Wuerl, who is Archbishop of Washington, writes that the lawsuit filed this week is not about contraception, noting that nothing in that suit challenges women's rights to those services. The Washington Archdiocese was one of 41 Catholic dioceses and other institutions to file suit against the federal contraception mandate. In his op-ed, Wuerl echoed the words of many of the mandate's critics, pointing out that Catholic hospitals, schools, and other programs would not be Catholic enough to qualify for a religious exemption. He says if that exemption is not changed, it would allow a federal government employee to decide what is or is not a religious ministry. Cardinal Wuerl was recently in New York, where we talked with him about health care. You can hear what he had to say by visiting our website, currentsny.net. And a new opportunity to see what one of the country's founding fathers had to say about religious liberty. Philadelphia's National Museum of American Jewish History will display what is referred to as George Washington's signature statement on religious liberty. It's a letter from 1790 sent by the country's first president to a Jewish congregation in Newport, Rhode Island. In the letter, Washington asked the Father of all mercies to, quote, make us in our several vocations useful here and in his own due time and way everlastingly happy. The letter will be on public display for the first time since 2002. A new poll shows President Obama's public support of same-sex marriage will not have much of an effect on the November election. The poll from NBC and the Wall Street Journal shows that only 17% of respondents say there is an increased likelihood that they will vote for the president because of his support for same-sex marriage. Meanwhile, just 20% say they are more likely to vote for Mitt Romney because of Obama's stance on that issue. 62% of respondents say President Obama's position does not make a difference in their vote. High hopes for reconciliation with a breakaway traditionalist group. Rome Reports has that story.
Colombian Cardinal Darío Castrillón Hoyos served as the chairman of the Commission Ecclesia Dei for 9 years. During that time, he's closely followed the discussions and negotiations with Lefebvrians. In June of 2009, he passed that responsibility to Cardinal William Joseph Levada. The negotiations with members of the Society of St. Pius X are now at a critical point. Benedict XVI is now analyzing the response by the group's superior general, as well as the objections that some cardinals have raised as far as their acceptance back into the Catholic Church.
As far as I am informed, it is no longer in my hands, but I think it has very good prospects. It seems the Holy See has offered a very good framework from the liturgical point of view, from an institutional one also, and the way of receiving them. And there was a response from Bishop Fillet and his counselors. I have great hopes that we are close to full reconciliation.
On May 16th, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith said it was not satisfied with Bishop Fillet's response to the doctrinal document that was once presented to the group by the Pope in hopes of resolving their split with the Catholic Church. There are divisions within the Society of St. Pius X, as shown in a letter written by 3 Lefebvrian bishops that was sent to Fillet. In that letter, it says that a union with Rome would, quote, put them at the hands of liberals and modernists.
In other news, Catholics in one region of China are asking for prayers amid persecution. UCA News reports that Catholics in Inner Mongolia have faced a series of suppressive acts by authorities. Church sources say the goal is to force priests who are part of the underground church in communion with Rome to join the government-sanctioned Catholic Patriotic Association. A source tells UCA that underground priests have to remain in hiding in order to avoid being arrested. A 40-year-old priest in custody since the middle of February is said to be in poor physical health because of torture and interrogation. And people in other parts of the world are praying for Chinese Catholics. Rome Reports has more on that one.
This group may be small, but its mission is huge. It's easy for them to go unnoticed among the thousands of tourists in St. Peter's Square. But even so, for the last 5 years, this small group has organized a procession in Rome to pray for the church in China.
Our brothers in China may not be here, but they are joining this procession through their suffering, through trials and tribulations. This pilgrimage is a way to unite. It's a small sacrifice to help us rediscover that we are walking together toward Christ. It's a way to entrust to Our Lady the evangelization of China.
The procession is held every 24th of May, which is actually the day Benedict XVI dedicated to pray for the church in China. On that day, a very popular image of Our Lady is celebrated in the sanctuary of Sheshan in Shanghai. In Rome, she's venerated with a procession from St. Peter's Square to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where Cardinal Julian Herranz celebrates Mass.
We are in the month of May, which is the month of the Virgin Mary, so it's important for us to be here in Rome and lead a procession to St. Mary Major, to pray at her feet and together with the successor of St. Peter, entrust her with our prayer.
The situation of Christians in China isn't always easy. In fact, some of them have left the country altogether. So this group is focused on strengthening the faith of Chinese Christians wherever they may be.
The group is called China Prayer, which came about under the new evangelization. It's a group of prayer and ministry for Chinese in China, or even for Chinese who migrate to other countries, which is quite common.
And so, even though the group is small, its initiative is powerful. Step by step, it tries to bring the new evangelization to the East.
American Idol may have wrapped up another season last night, potentially catapulting another winner to stardom, but a very different singer could soon be taking the charts by storm.
Anis angelicus, fit panis.
That's 34-year-old Franciscan friar Alessandro Brustengi. According to the UK newspaper The Telegraph, he signed a contract with Decca Records. Brustengi says he grew up listening to Michael Jackson and Bach and also likes electronic music. According to UCA News, he is the first friar to sign a major recording contract. He's taken a vow of poverty and will not accept any money for record sales, instead donating it to his religious order. Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. Coming up, a local church hosts a thought-provoking talk on sexual education.
A parent has a closer relationship and have a better vested interest in a child, and therefore parents need to get more involved with what their kids are being taught.
Amid all the talk of pro-choice versus pro-life preferences, the heated debate over legislation for or against same-sex marriage, and let's not forget the firestorm ignited by the U.S. government's controversial contraception mandate, the topic of sexuality has been front and center in more ways than one. Church catechism has always sought to teach all Catholics, young and old, the true nature and importance of sexuality in their lives, reminding us that sexuality affects all aspects of the human person in the unity of his body and soul. It especially concerns affectivity, the capacity to love and to procreate, and in a more general way, the aptitude for forming bonds of communion with others. But what happens when teaching our children about the morality of sexual relationships is just not enough? Well, during a lecture on sex education held at the Church of St. Thomas More in New York, we learned that we have to include a science in the discussion at that point.
The two groups that are at the helm of sexuality education, which are Planned Parenthood and SIECUS, what they want is for students to be open to just about any type of sexual activity.
This evening we had a presentation on sexuality, sex education by Dr. Miriam Grossman. It is a hot topic for us because it involves the education of our children.
Sexuality education is a social movement. And like all social movements, it's based on a dream. This movement envisions a world free of Judeo-Christian morality. But this is a made-up world. It doesn't exist. In the real world, girls, young women, have unique biological sensitivities, and early sexual behavior endangers them more than it does boys. The real question here is why promote the idea that vaginal and anal intercourse are comparable? What is behind the notion of generic intercourse? What's behind it is the false belief that males and females are the same and their unions are equivalent. That's what they want our kids to believe. Questioning values is seen as one of the purposes of sexuality education. Early sexual activity with multiple partners is assumed, high-risk behaviors are normalized, and an attitude of openness and adventure is celebrated.
Starting sexual activity is a major step for any individual. Planned Parenthood is saying it's up to you as a kid to do if it feels good and to do it because you want to do it. She's saying no, it goes back to the family. The family should be the initiators.
As a mother, I'm very concerned about that because I would like to give them the proper answer to their curiosity, which is a natural curiosity. I do really believe that science is always on our side, but is often used bad. Okay, so to have a biological support, it's good for me because it makes it easier also to talk to my children.
You cannot talk on a moral level. Children don't listen to that, especially in high school and college. But if you can talk to them on a scientific level, it might really make a mark.
The New York education program is going to do what it thinks it should do. A parent has a closer relationship and have a better vested interest in a child, and therefore parents need to get more involved with what their kids are being taught.
Because what's under the microscope and what's observed on MRIs affirms the traditional values and the Judeo-Christian morality against which they crusade.
And stay tuned, there's more current after the break. When we return, a new opportunity for a group of young Catholics.
We wanted to make a difference in their life. We wanted to give them an opportunity to grow.
Finally tonight, another season of American Idol is complete. 21-year-old Philip Phillips came out the winner, surviving weeks of performances, fan voting, and of course, the criticism of judges Steven Tyler, Jennifer Lopez, and Randy Jackson. Now, closer to home, on a beautiful day last weekend, a group of young people in the Brooklyn Diocese had an audition of sorts. Now, it may not have been for a shot at Hollywood stardom, but it was a unique opportunity. Through the Diocese Vicariate of Black Catholic Concerns, we had a chance to check it out at St. Joseph's Church in Jamaica, Queens.
We're here today to interview for the upcoming year for the Youth Leadership Ambassador Program. We set up an interview to basically find out who they are, what they're about, how they heard about the program, why they're interested in the program, what they hope to get out of the program.
One of the problems that we've seen in our community, especially in the Black Catholic community, is that the young people are not really taking charge. They're not really being leaders. And we wanted to make a difference in their life. We wanted to give them an opportunity to grow.
We have 3 young people who are coming to interview today, 1 from Our Lady of Light Parish and 2 from St. Joseph's Parish, which is where we're interviewing at today.
I was very nervous for this interview. This program, what it can offer me that others won't, is stay active in Jesus, God, and stay within my church. When I graduate, I want to go to the Air Force.
I don't know if I'm nervous about meeting new people, but really excited about going and meeting the other ambassadors. I think they want us to be well-rounded people. They want us to definitely be able to be dependable, so if they call on us and ask us to do something, we can live up to their expectations.
All right, let's get to some deeper questions. What makes you a leader? Do you consider yourself a leader? And if you do, why would you consider yourself a leader? One of the great pleasure for me in the last 3 years that I've been kind of leading the program is to see these young people really transform before my eyes. From the interview stage till the end of the year, or in some cases 2 or 3 years, to see them transform into great leaders who can lead programs within their own parish community, and be able to go to college and even start programs.
I want younger kids to feel together and not separated, and I want bullying to stop, because that's a major issue, and I want girls to feel comfortable in their own skin.
Just tell us a little bit about you, about who you are and parish that you attend.
I like to help girls mostly. I don't want them to feel insecure about themselves.
What I am is a girl who wants to help, and at school actually I'm having a show called Young and Beautiful, Be Your Own You, for girls out there, so they can come and learn what it is to basically be a girl who's looking towards the right future.
It's very important that our young people know that we support them and that we're going to be willing to help them in any way that we can possibly help them to succeed.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up on Friday, movies, television shows, and books that affirm the highest values of the human spirit. It's the annual Christopher Awards. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. We are also on Facebook, and you can always follow us on Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faubliss. And as we end tonight's show, we want to show you some guests we had in our studio on Wednesday. Students from Divine Wisdom Academy in Flushing. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.